Welcome to Jared Scott Outdoors. This YouTube channel is dedicated to getting our youth more involved in the outdoors. To do this, I'll be out with family and friends doing all sorts of outdoor adventures. This week on Jared Scott Outdoors, we are heading into some beautiful country. Now, where are we? We're up in the Copper Basin, and I've got Baptie Lake here on the side. We've got the sun that just rose. It's a beautiful morning out here. We're going to be fishing Goat Lake, Betty Lake, Baptie Lake, summiting a peak. We've got a lot of fun for you. Let's get after it. So the Copper Basin is northwest of Arco and west of Mackay. It has lots of trails and high mountain lakes you could explore, both motorized and unmotorized. It's a big area and a fairly popular place during the summer months. As I mentioned, we were heading to Baptie Lake, Goat Lake, and Betty Lake. The trails to this area are non-motorized. The most direct trail is found in Broad Canyon. There's a few other options, but this is the easiest way up. After turning up Broad Canyon, go ahead and drive past the Broad Canyon campground, and the road will end at the trailhead 100 yards or so further up. At this point, it's about a 4.5 to 5 mile trail to Baptie Lake. You may want to use some mosquito spray as soon as you get out of the truck and you're getting things together. Those, as well as deer flies and horse flies, seem to be pretty prevalent at these lower elevations. Once up at the lakes, the mosquitoes continue to pester you, so be prepared for that. The forecast for the day was hot. It was now 11 a.m. and warming up fast. We had a big group on this trip and didn't waste any time getting on the trail. We wanted to get up to those cooler elevations. The trailhead starts at around 7,800 feet, and Baptie Lake is sitting at about 10,200 feet. So it's a climb of 2,400 feet in about 5 miles. Not too bad overall. However, the first 3 miles is actually a pretty gentle incline. In fact, in those 3 miles, the trail barely climbs 400 feet. That makes the first part of the trail very enjoyable. However, that also means the majority of the elevation gain is going to be at the end of the trail. And yeah, that's when it gets tough. So for a minute, let me just show you the easy part. Beautiful trail. This is the easy part. Got about 3 miles of easy and then it gets rough. When the trail crosses the creek a few miles up, there's no obvious way across. From a distance, I noticed the front of our group trying to figure a way across and then just give up and pretty much wade through it. What they didn't know was just upstream in the brush, there were some logs laid side by side to help cross without getting wet. So I'm just hanging out right now, kind of waiting for the tail end of our group. Just in a beautiful meadow right here. And up ahead we can see some of the granite that we're going to be camping out below as we keep going. But what we don't know is what kind of conditions are we going to find. We're actually, we're the end of July right now. And typically you could go up in any of these mountains in Idaho in July and not have to worry about snow or anything like that. But with this crazy winter/spring that we had, I don't know. I know as of a week ago, I heard a report of somebody coming up and Betty Lake was just coming off of ice. They were able to fish the edges. So that tells you how much ice is there. And Goat Lake is actually a little bit higher than Betty Lake. So I'm not quite sure what we're going to find, if these are going to be fishable. Baptie for sure should be fishable. Whether Goat is fishable, I'm not sure. It might be the ice is coming off and it's perfect fishing, but we're not quite sure. Down here I'm waiting for this group because we have this river crossing that most of our group waded right through. They couldn't find a way across, where 20 yards up, kind of hidden in the brush, are a few logs some people have put down to cross. So I figured I'd hang out, wait for the tail end of our group so that I could make sure they cross with dry feet, because when you got 2 to 3 miles left of hiking to do, there's nothing worse than wet shoes to give you blisters. So we'll try to keep things dry and keep going. I helped the rest of our group across, and then hitting the trail again, we were immediately finding ourselves climbing a steeper section of trail. Once you cross the creek, that's when you start climbing a bit. Not the real bad stuff, but enough to break you in and remind you that it's not easy. The creek's only about, I think you've hiked at least half of it and only gained about 500 feet. So now we got about 2 miles left, and we got about a little less than 2,000 feet to gain. So definitely gonna get a lot steeper coming. Our first view of Standhope Peak, and right below that are our lakes. On the left here, this side is Baptie and Goat. Luckily, the next time the trail intersected the river, the way across was more obvious. If I recall, this is where the fun begins. Now we're going to start some serious elevation gains, some switchbacks, and this is going to be a grind for the next mile or so. Sure enough, the switchbacks came, and it just got tougher. Oh man. Well, the sweat is running, burning my eyes. Covered a handful of those switchbacks. This 60-pound pack is catching up to me now. I have a feeling we're gonna have some guys that gets their butts kicked back behind me. You know, it's of course been a pretty hike, but I'll tell you what, it just took a big step up on how incredible this is out here. The only problem is right there, our last big climb before we get to Baptie. There'll be plenty of switchbacks there, but at least the end is getting close. I can see Standhope Peak behind it. Just got to get up over this gnarly part. Betty, we're going to Baptie. Just when you think you're getting close, you'll run into this sign. Left for Baptie Lake and straight for Betty Lake. We went left and found that there were still lots of switchbacks and elevation to gain. The top that looks like it's just ahead just kept staying out of reach longer than anticipated, making for one of those trail sections that just seems to never end. I caught up with some of our group that were getting pretty disheartened. I let them know it was just at the top of what they could see, and so they motored on, determined to get there quick to end the pain and suffering. Hallelujah! That was way further than you said it would be, Asher. Holy cow. Finally cresting over the top, Baptie Lake and a much needed rest was waiting for us. Well, it feels good to be sitting down right now. I'll tell you what, that last mile was rough. It just never ended. Kept going and going, and definitely seemed like more than a mile. I'm sure it was with all the switchbacks. It was pretty brutal. It's nice to be here. It's nice to relax. I'm looking forward to pulling out the pole and doing some fishing, seeing what we can catch here, and just relaxing. But for now, we've still got some stragglers, so get a little food and head back down trail and see if we can help some people out. But beautiful spot, beautiful place to be. A lot funner once you get here. This waterfall you see feeding into Baptie Lake is actually coming right out of Goat Lake up above. After a long rest and watching a lot of the guys fish for and catch a handful of golden trout from Baptie Lake, I decided I'd head out and go check out Goat Lake to see how it looked, if it was still iced over or ready to fish. Even though there's a trail up around the north end from Baptie Lake to Goat Lake, I hiked straight up the mountain around the left side of the waterfall coming from Goat Lake. This short little hike is a pretty hike with water coming from all over the mountain. The positive effects of the big snow year we had is still pretty obvious out here. Getting over the top, Goat Lake looked incredible. For perspective, you can see the outlet from Goat Lake turn into the waterfall you see from Baptie Lake down below. This view is part of why I think it's such an amazing place to visit. As far as Goat Lake goes, there was still some ice, but not too much. Since the ice was obviously just recently melting off, the fishing could prove to be amazing. So now it was time to pull out some line and cast a fly or two. Well, I have a feeling that these fish have not been fished for very much this year with that ice coming off the way it is. Not quite as big, but pretty fish. Beautiful setting by myself. As you can see, we're out of time, but we are definitely not done with this adventure. The fishing at Goat Lake proves to be the best I've ever seen, and I'll show you all about that on an upcoming episode. Check back next week to see how we wrap it up. These episodes can't be done without your help. You know the drill. Please make some comments, like, and subscribe, and I'll keep working on more videos.